Hi, it's Jane, and I am going to work on the square, but I thought I would show you. When you're working, a square like this and you're figuring out how you're going to do this, one of the easiest ways to count is to count along the side. Like this is your first row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that way your squares are going to be the same if you want them to be the same. So you know how many rows to do before you switch over to the white. I personally don't care. I think the whole idea is just to do a blanket and make it look a little different. And sometimes that means messing with the amount of rows you do one time, not another, and then putting them together and seeing how it goes. It may be that I choose to put all the blues together, all the reds. I don't know. Haven't decided yet. So yeah, anyway, I am working on this square here again. Got a little bit of a portion of a start going, so I'm doing that. I'm a little frustrated because I had ordered some webbing straps, and I had ordered from 2 different companies, and they were supposedly heavy-duty 1-inch black webbing straps. Well, the first one came in yesterday. It's not heavy duty. It's lightweight, but it'll still work. It's just not the same thickness or quality as to what I'm used to using. The other was supposed to be here Monday. I'm filming this Friday, and it still hasn't been delivered. So I have no idea if it's going to show up or not. It's kind of gone around the world several times. Came to Pennsylvania, then went to... And like I was saying, it come back to Pennsylvania, then it went back to New York. Then it came back to Pennsylvania to the original place that had sent it back to New York twice. And they in turn finally sent it to a local distribution, Amazon distribution here. Like I said, it was supposed to be here Monday. It's still Friday and hasn't shown up. And I paid for it 2 weeks ago. It was actually supposed to be here last week, and then it got delayed. So I do know if it is not that heavy duty that I like, I will not be purchasing from them again. It was a halfway decent price. 20, normally I get 20 yards at a time. But this one, it was supposed to be 15 yards. So we'll see. It was a little bit cheaper than the 20, a little bit cheaper per yard for the 15 than it was for the 20. So I thought, well, I'll try it because, I can just add additional rolls of it for what I need. It's no big deal. At a cheaper price, it comes out better. But if it's going to go around the world 6 or 7 times, then, sometimes I need it to get here by the date it says it's going to get here. So, that's one of those that you just kind of have to go, okay, we're going to have to just play it by ear and let it go the way it's going to go. But, yeah, it's a little on the frustrating side for that to happen, for it to take so long. But, I guess we've kind of gotten used to the whole idea that it'll be here tomorrow or the next day after with Amazon. And, we forget that sometimes there's individual people that are shipping it, that it's not Amazon doing the shipping. But they say it's going to be here on a date, it should be here on that date. Or at least the next day. You know, not this kind of nonsense that's been going on this week with the item. So, I was trying to figure out if there was a way for me to film putting a photo up on somebody's community board. I do know that when I go to post, normally I hit the where it says on the words, it'll say post, and then generally I can add a photo in there somewhere. Sometimes it's looks like a plus sign in the middle of a square to add photo, or sometimes it says download file from computer or your phone if you're using your phone. And it's just hard to tell, you know, exactly. But trying to figure out how to show you guys how to do that, because I know that those other creators, you know, YouTubers that have put that feature, taken it live to where people, your subscribers can post, are really enjoying it because its ability to share those kind of things. And of course, the only other thing you could do, you could go to the Facebook group, Scraptastic Yarns, and you could put it in one of the posts there. So that's another way that you could share it if you wanted to. But I don't know. Sometimes I think these places make things difficult. They think they're doing something good, and it comes out more difficult than what it is. I had gotten a message through Etsy from the Etsy gurus or whatever, you know, thanking me for joining in on the insights of this or whatnot. And I was like, what? I joined something? When did that happen? So I still haven't figured out what that's talking about. And who knows? Maybe they just signed everybody up for it. Those of you that have Etsy shops, is that what's happened? I'm just curious. My kitty cats have been awful quiet today, so when I got home, I went looking for them. Both of them sleeping on the bed. I'm like, and they used to sleep with me at night. Now they don't. Izzy will start out in the bedroom when I go to bed. She'll start out next to me, and she wants to be petted, loved. She takes a little cat nap, and then when I start getting ready for bed, she takes off and comes in here into the living room, into her little cat bed over there. Ronan, he likes to sleep in master bedroom. I have whatever season clothes I'm not wearing. Like right now, I am changing out my spring summer clothes to the fall winter clothes, you know, with the long sleeves and some sweaters. So I'm changing that out, and normally I have those under the clothes because most of my clothes are shirts that I have hanging in the closet. So that's kind of what's going on there. But normally he likes to sleep on the top of those totes under the clothes because it's very secluded and it hides him well. I haven't figured out how to stop him from doing that. So, and the only other place he likes to sleep in is he likes to sleep on either the rug by my bed, right where my feet would step if I got out of bed. The other place is in the bathroom. I have a rug in front of the shower. And he likes to sleep there as well, so. But they just crack me up because when I come walking into the bedroom looking, I was kind of looking around to see where they were. I come walking into the bedroom, they're both on the bed, and they both look at me like, what? What are you doing here? Why are you here? We're in here. This is our time. Yeah, they just kind of crack me up the way they do that. Let's see, what have I learned about in the news so far today? Well, President Trump didn't win the Nobel Peace Prize, but honestly, I didn't think he was going to win it because the nominations had to be in, I think, the first or second week of January. So, of course, he wouldn't have been in the running for that. Now, if he doesn't get it next year, I would think there's something wrong. But I do find it interesting that the woman, is it Maria? Karina? I think that's her last name. The lady from Venezuela that won the Nobel Peace Prize. She accepted her prize and dedicated it to President Trump. So I do think that's interesting. So let's see, that's going on. And then President of Mexico is closing the southern border because of the migrants that are coming in, because they want to be taken care of. They want to be given free food, free housing, free health care. They don't want to have to work. And they're basically saying that they can take over Mexico. So she's closing the border. I guess she realizes that what a financial drain that is on our country and the kind of problems that come with it, especially when they say they're going to take over everything in your country, whether you like it or not. So I do find that interesting. And I know that there are a lot of, when you are in Mexico, there's a lot of backlash against Americans. They're there vacationing or whatever, although there are some Americans that actually live there year-round because they meet the qualification of making sure they have their own health care insurance. They're not a drain on, the Mexican society as far as welfare or any other kind of needs like that. They contribute to the tax base and the economy. But there are a lot of Hispanics that are wanting them to leave, do not want tourists to come to Mexico. I haven't quite wrapped my head around that because I don't think they understand they're going to lose dollars, pesos. They'll lose that tourism. And there are quite a few places, in Mexico. Some of those places are around some of the Mayan ruins that a lot of people enjoy going to vacation at, those kind of things. You know, they're not vacationing in third world villages for the most part. They are vacationing in areas that have been developed for tourism. And I say that because my son loves going down to a certain village for fishing, deep sea fishing. However, he realizes it is a resort that is created for that, because they did venture off one time to go into a nearby village that is not a part of that village. And he said it was a very stark difference in what you were seeing out on the streets, shops, places like that to visit, marketplaces, those kind of things. He said, however, it was still interesting. Still had an opportunity to purchase some things that he was thinking about other people, you know, for gifts, those kind of things. So, and he's always enjoyed going down. But he said it's kind of changed over the years, you know, because even some of the resorts there are not safe. Just because some of the criminal element that slips in there. And then he said if you're in a town where there's a big cartel, you really have no idea what's going to happen one day to the next with the cartel when they come around looking for their protection money. So, kind of like the story of the one guy that cartel was coming, so the shopkeeper decided, several of them decided to shut down their shops. And when they did, they'd shut it down. There was one guy that was in there with them with about 20 people and just grinning. Well, because they were shutting down to avoid paying the cartel their protection money, the cartel member was in there and knew what they were doing, and so murdered all of them. You know, that kind of sends a message to the rest of the shop owners that they need to beware. So, you know, those kind of things. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I think I did one row too many. May just leave it. I'm real sure. Yep, time to change. So let me get that trimmed and then we'll get it cut and change out to the white. But I think that's the biggest thing that I've seen with those, you know, with the story with Mexico. Which I do find that interesting, you know, that they go through those kind of issues, those kind of things. Ignore my bald spot. My son, I was telling him about my bald spot. He said, Mother, you don't have a bald spot. And I said, well, I don't think you're looking close enough because I do. I said, most older women do have. I said, I call it a bald spot, but it's my hair is thinning in that area. So he goes, oh, okay. Yeah, that, you do have one of those. Thank you, son. I think I do one increase here. Let me look to see. Yep, one increase. And then I started decreasing. Okay. Just want to make sure I know what I'm doing here. That's important. It's always important to know what you're doing, what you're planning on doing. So, what are your plans for the weekend? You know, we have Columbus Day, whatever they're going to call it this year. I don't know. I saw something where Trump had signed 13th as Columbus Day. I always thought that was, kind of silly to have to proclaim it each year these days or these months. But, we do ceremonial things like that all the time. Of course, we have people raising a stink about it. It's not Columbus Day, it's Indigenous Day. Columbus did all this, blah, blah, blah. Well, Columbus didn't discover America either. But that's beside the point, right? It was a day meant to honor the Italians, basically. Italian heritage. Let them have the day. So, the only other thing that I've seen is Chuck Schumer is going to be at a rally in D.C. for No King's Day protest on the 18th, and the goal is to keep the government shut down until after that so he can, rail against Trump at the No Kings little protest that they're having in D.C. on the 18th. Well, my thoughts on that are, well, if he thought he was a king, why isn't he shutting down your protest? If I were king, I wouldn't let people protest. Tell them to stay home. If they don't stay home, I'd arrest them all. Just saying. And I do think that this whole thing, you have the left going off about the thing, like Schumer saying he talked to Tish today. Letitia James, who was indicted for the fraud with the housing, banking, that kind of thing. Well, I'm sorry. She broke the law. So, she's indicted. She was indicted by a court in Virginia. Is there good cause for it? Oh, yeah. There's a lot of evidence showing what she'd done about the lying and whatnot with this property. So, I'm sorry. No one's above the law. Remember? And I think it's funny that Schumer is talking about that it was a witch hunt, that it was a political persecution. Really? Chucky, do you remember what she ran on? She ran on prosecuting that she would prosecute Donald Trump. She'd go after him. So wasn't that political in nature as well? But irregardless, you've got the evidence to show what she did. And she will have her day in court to prove her innocence or not. But, You got tax records and forms and declarations that she signed attesting to that, so maybe she's not that good a lawyer. Maybe she didn't figure out how to cover her tracks. Yeah, I don't know. Don't quite have a handle on that either, so anyway. But it will be interesting to see what happens, to see how they work that out or don't work it out. But I guess we'll see what happens in the future, how that works out, right? My weekend, I have a women's prayer gathering that I will be participating in Saturday. After that, there's not a whole lot going on. So, probably work on cleaning up the house and, doing some of those jobs, doing some sewing. Do have some plans for sewing. Need to work out my budget for the month. That's going to be just terrifically fun. I don't know why I dread that each month. I mean, I have set amount that I know has to go out for a certain amount of bills, but, there are times it's like, oh, I can't do this. But, yeah, that's kind of what I'm planning on doing this weekend. I am going to leave this short. I am going to go do a couple of things. I need to get some laundry out and also need to finish putting away those spring, summer clothing for the winter, this fall, winter clothing. So I need to get a move on. But in the meantime, everybody have a great weekend. I'll see you again tomorrow, I would imagine. And again Monday, hopefully. All right. Bye.